wanted to bring up today was not only, like, first of all, we're gonna cover some systems of training, specifically our small group personal training. I'm gonna actually show you some stuff, some principles, some thinking patterns and things like that. But I wanted to start with what I actually finished our small group with today, which was what I tend to do, what I like to do is always create a frame for the training session. I like to tell stories. Remember, people have learned for thousands of years through stories, so it's the best way to teach, it's the best way to educate. Showing and drawing stuff, like people are visual. So I ended the session, before we brought it in, I brought this up and I said, hey, listen guys, we're gonna sit down, we're gonna do a little test, we're gonna do a little drill, I'm gonna show a point. Like, hey, come up here, I'm gonna time you for 5-6 seconds, and I'll draw as many triangles as you can in 5 to 6 seconds, however you can. Matter of fact, I learned this from Alan Cosgrove, so big props to my guy. But so I had a couple people come up, and they started doing 3, 2, 1, started going really fast, drawing triangles. 6 seconds. First one got 7. Right. The second person went and drew a big one, and then they started kind of coming off the edges and doing this, and I think they got more, 10, 8, something like that. Which is, it's great. But, and actually one of our members, who is a small business owner, I saw her churning there in the back, thinking about it. And usually people don't get this, but she got it. And she came up and she did this. Right? And if you look at that, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, like it's 20, right? It's 20 within, I probably wasn't even 6 seconds. So my point to this, I'll actually leave this up there. My point was that, there's a system for drawing as many triangles as possible in 6 seconds. That's the system right there, right? As a successful system, it beats out other systems. And there, just as there is in, this example, there are systems that are better, to achieve results in a certain area. Marketing, sales, business, this, that, the other. Now, of course, some people say there's many ways to get to endpoint. This is true. But the principles of it, they kind of fall in line. So what I wanted to do is show you a system that we use that works. It just, like I said, we've been around for over 13 years if we count our gym in Slovenia. Been developing these things, learning from the best in the world. So it's not something that I would say was just kind of, hey, let me take some theory and throw it in there for a week and yay, this works. I'll even say this, think of it as a cook and a chef, okay? So I believe most coaches should at first be very good cooks, excellent cooks. For instance, I'm not a great chef, but if you give me a cookbook, right, I can prepare a great meal from a cookbook. Right, and I'm gonna learn the recipe from somebody else. So somebody else created this recipe. I'm gonna take that recipe and I'm gonna make it great. Okay, and that's where I think every coach should start, learning from the best of the best, learning their recipes, learning their systems. Okay, and getting great at them, great at the cooking. Right, but once you become an excellent cook and you really master different other people's recipes, then a lot of times you become a chef. Right, you start creating your own recipes because you know the rules, you know the principles. And then you can break them a little bit, right? But most people actually stay within those principles, right? As also Alan Cosgrove said, methods are many, principles are few. Methods change, principles never do. So we're gonna actually go over some of these principles. I'm gonna flip this board around here too. It's gonna be squeaky, a little bit squeaky. Because this is the program from today, but I want to specifically talk about small group training, right? And like I said, our small group focuses on strength. And our groups are anywhere from 8, 12, 15, some even as big as 20, 20 plus, and we'll just have multiple coaches or assistants. And what I wanted to kind of break down is the different phases that we go through and how you have to adjust. Every gym is different, that's the other thing too. Some gyms are 1,000 square feet, some they're 2,000. Now, I started in a garage here in Seattle, in Renton, it was 1,000 square feet. That was everything included. Bathrooms, it wasn't full-blown usable space of 1,000. Now we're in this big building, people are like, oh, you got all these possibilities. Absolutely, but we're still constrained because we might have team training going on at the same time with 30 people, semi-privates, and one have to do small group. But we want to stay within the systems and principles of what works. So right here, this is a simple kind of breakdown of different phases, and I'll show you guys how we've gelled these together. So first of all, like phase one, I mean, you gotta get like pre-training preparation. I've talked about this before, the 3 R's out of the R7, release, reset, readiness. So think of it this way, soft tissue work, right? Whether it's foam rolling, body tempering, which I love, lacrosse balls, acume mobility balls, like anything that's gonna kind of change that tissue. And I'm not gonna go into the science of changing the tissue, just think of it this way, right? Something is tight, we can create change by releasing it through different modalities, right? We can apply force and get certain releases. Reset, whether that's through breathing, we're huge on breathing. Different resets depending on also how your rib cage expands and like more than I can go into right now, but we'll use breathing to bring down the tonality of the body, right? If you're super high strung, most people come stressed out, like we'll do breathing and specific box breathing drills that brings their heart rate down, makes them more relaxed, right? From an autonomic state. And we're also gonna do, whether it's DNS, do some joint adjustments, should I say some drills where I would say we're gonna centrate the joints, right? But the thing is, we wanna get the body into a place where it's in the best position to train hard, okay? Because if you come in from work and you're all around it and your hip flexors are tight, right? And you've been stressed all day, so you're shallow breathing, and then all of a sudden you do a couple of warm-ups real quick and now you're squatting heavy and now you're deadlift. That is not a smart way to go about training. It's just not, right? We live in a world where we have to prepare better because we are in our phones all day long. We're on our computers, we're sitting, crouched, right? We're in bad positions. We are not active anymore, right? Our foundation has to be sapient fitness. Like, Dewey or FRC guys would call it sapient fitness first. Like, hey, your joints have to function well, right? So, and then from there is readiness. That's the dynamic warm-ups. Those are the things that you guys have seen in the videos and the vlogs where we're doing, squat to stand, Spider-Man lunge with reach, right? We're doing specific 90-90 hip switches. We're doing FRC kinetic stretching. I'll talk about a little bit where each one of these things has its place, right? But we're preparing the body and ramping the body up to be able to perform at a high level so that you get the most out of the training session. So this is very, very important, right? So we're getting core temperature up, right? We're putting joints in the proper positions, opening up. I mean, let's just say we're making joints function the right way, and then we're getting specific with it. Hey, if we're gonna squat, guess what? We're probably gonna do squat pattern warm-ups as well. If we're gonna, deadlift, we're gonna hinge. If we're gonna do this, we're gonna do specific warm-ups. So in phase 2, like we're gonna get CNS intensity. So these are things like power, speed, special strength for sports. And you might say, hey, if I'm training the general population, who cares about that? I've said this before, I'll say it again. Power is important, speed, agility is important, even for a 55-year-old, a 60-year-old. First of all, it'll make them function better. Second of all, when they fall, they'll be able to catch themselves, right? Like, which takes power and agility. If something happens, they're able to respond and react faster because 1 out of 3 people over 50 that fall break their hip, right? On top of that, they're harder to kill. They can whoop ass. Like, it's all the cool stuff in life, right? So we have this in here, okay? And then phase 3 is strength training. So these are our basic strength movement patterns. Horizontal push, horizontal pull, right? So whether it's push-up, TRX row, where it's dumbbell bench press, T-bar rows, right? It's one-arm cable rows. We got quad dominant, our step, our lunge, our split, our single leg. We have hip dominant, we're neutral spine. So that's our deadlift variations, or whether it's good mornings, or whether it's staggered stance with those. We have rotation, anti-rotation, core drills. Carries, drags, push, those are our movements under tension. Loaded conditioning, some people would say, okay? And then we have our grip strength. And so now what we do, because of time constraints, remember, we have about an hour to hour 15 to run our small groups. Okay, first of all, because of the constraints of the gym, but also because of people's constraints to training. They only have so much time. So what we do many a times, remember, none of this stuff is black and white like we've adjusted much, but I'll show you right here when you go to block 1. So our block 1 in our small group personal training is focused on strength and power, right? Or sometimes power elasticity, it might be plyometrics. And what we do to keep it in check is we time it, right? So this is a 14-minute block. Sometimes it might be a little longer, sometimes a little shorter. Once again, we have a system. We have a system we talked about before that we stick to, but in this case, it was 14 minutes long. And so our strength exercise today, right, because we do this, we have a 3-day-a-week program that we break up, was the trap bar deadlift for 4. Now, first of all, in that 14-minute block, people ramp up to their heaviest weights of 4 for that day. So they're not just hitting 4 right off the weight heavy. They actually know the system. We've taught them the system. And because we're crunched for time, they're going to do what's called a contrast set, okay? Which is going to be today was a box jump. So they're jumping on a box for 5 reps, exploding, sticking, stepping down, right? And now, and these are similar patterns, right? We got a strength pattern, which in a contrast set, we know that it can enhance power right afterwards. So we have a box jump. From there, they went to a core trainer press, right? So and it was actually a push press today, whereas a core trainer push press, because once again, most people can't go overhead in a healthy way. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And this pattern, pretty much everybody can do once we're in the gym. So they're training that kind of in between vertical and horizontal push pattern for 6 per side. So going pretty heavy. And then the contrast set to that was outside, and they were doing rotational med ball throws into the wall for 6. Now this is not like what we teach them in a strength block. It's not a circuit where they're running around getting really fatigued. They'll go and do a trap bar, walk over to the box jump, take a little break, get their box jumps in, walk over to the core trainer press. Usually they might have to even wait, which is perfect because now they get their breaking. This is more focused on, this is more focused on pure strength, right? We don't want to be smoked like crappy form. It's great form. It's getting enough rest breaks. And for those 14 minutes, they're going to keep ramping up till they get to about 2 to 3 top sets of those 4 reps, 2 to 3 top sets of those 6 reps, and we're going to keep the power up in those contrast exercises. So that's how, right here, we combine these phase 2 and 3, right? We're able to gel them together and still get all these benefits that we want our members to get from. Because remember, our small group personal training focuses mostly on, like I said, strength, power, muscle building. Whereas our team training is where we have, I would say, our energy system and our conditioning components, right? Which I'm not going to cover today. From there, we go to phase 4, and those are supplement accessory exercises to the main exercises. So think about this. If you were doing a squat, what are the accessory supplement exercises to train the weaklings? Well, what you can do here, you can see that we have 2 lower, block 2, we call it full body muscle building because it's easy for, we'll say, people to understand that. I still use, big words too much, and I've cut it down significantly, but, saying stuff like hypertrophy to a person that comes into the gym and doesn't know what the hell that is, but if you say muscle, building lean muscle, they understand that. So we have anterior valve slide lunge for 8. So these are like high reps now. We got time under tension, more time under tension, building muscle, building up those weaklings. And that anterior lunge is, think about this. This looks like a deadlift, right? But we're on a valve slide here in the back, and we really drive through that front position. So it's a supplement movement to this trap bar right here, right? Building time and attention. From there, we had an incline dumbbell bench. So think about, that's a supplement exercise to that core trainer press. From there, we had a double kettlebell squat with time and attention on 15 on that one. Like I said, we undulate throughout the weeks. You're just seeing a piece here, so I can't explain the whole block of the month, but it'll give you an idea. And then we have 1-arm cable rolls, right? So that's a horizontal pull, okay? So this one, it's a 12-minute block. This actually works like escalating density training. This is something Charles Staley created a long time ago. I've loved the system where throughout the weeks, all we're trying to do is build a little bit more volume in that 12-minute block, right? And it works incredibly well for progressive overload. And like I said, we're using load, so we're using for the 8 reps, we're not using an 8 rep max. We're using like a 12 rep max somewhere around for that 8 reps, right? Incline dumbbell bench press. We're using a 15 rep max for a 10 reps because over that 12-minute block, they're gonna build up a good amount of tension, right? So that's our block 2. It works on this supplement accessory work, okay? So with phase 5 is torso, so core training. Now the thing is, we actually plug that in. A lot of times we'll do work in warm-ups. Sometimes we'll put it into our block 2 or block 3, and we definitely do core finishers. And I'll say, look, people love, I'll say the feeling of certain things before they leave. There's a great book called The Power of Moments by Chip and Dan Heath, talking about how people remember 2 different things, okay? They remember the peak or the low of an experience. So I don't know if you went to Disney World. and you're like, oh my God, this was the greatest ride ever. I remember that. Or it's like, oh, that was shitty. I waited in line for 2 hours and it was a crappy ride. You remember that. And you remember the ending, right? Right at the end, everybody remembers the ending. So the ending of a training session is massively important. And so that's why at the end of the session, we tell stories. We bring it in, we fire people up. And we also do stuff like, core finishers. We do like arm pump work. Stuff like, booty, lower body, booty blasts and stuff like that. For those last five minutes, maybe 10 minutes, because people leave on a high. Like, yo, man, I remember that finish. That was gnarly, high-fiving. Bring it in as a team. So we plug those in throughout different phases, depending on it. And phase 6 is energy systems, conditioning. Now, we actually keep our block 3. It's somewhat, that's where we push it, right? We push it a little bit more, a little faster pace. So for instance, here we had incline barbell push-ups, we had lateral band walks, we had 3-way TRX rows, we had step over lunges. And most of that is body weight, but we go, right? So there's more metabolic tension in there, higher reps, and this is where like people start sweating, right? Now, and like I said, this is all full body. Remember, there's actually different phases where we'll go through. Well, we do strength power, lower body block 2, upper body block 3. Once again, you don't like, there's a lot of different ways to do this, but this is a system, right? Overarching system where we fit all these things in. And you can see those energy systems. Now, phase 7 is actually really, really important, and we teach this, and that's recovery, rejuvenation, restoration. And so one of the big mistakes that like I would say people in general make is when they're training at the gym. So imagine doing a hard training session. Your central nervous system is ramped up through the roof. And then you're like, all right, peace out. And you just walk out and you're just, tone and on. And then you sit into that metal bucket, right? All of a sudden you're crouched over and people are like, oh my God, my back's spasming, my hips are spasming. Yeah, like you want to create a time, even if it's just 5 minutes, 5, 6, 7, 10 minutes, where you're cooling down. So you'll see a lot of our members end one session and do the warm-ups of the second session, but do them really chill and just calm down and then leave. Or they'll just go start foam rolling, or they'll do breathing drills, or sometimes they'll just walk around the building, right? We're trying to teach them to calm down before they go, because we want to get our body into the recovery state as fast as possible, because then that recovery window is longer. If you go straight from a training session, jump into a car, into traffic, you're stressed out, you're short on time, you go home, now all of a sudden you're still in that, I would say, sympathetic state, you're still ramped up, and you're not going to recover well, right? Your window of recovery is now shorter, and remember, we only get results as good as the work that we can recover from, right? So that's massively important. And here you can see at the bottom, I said different progressions. Training means progressions and regressions. And there's so many different things, because once again, if you saw today's session, there was a lot of different fitness levels in here, right? And you might say, well, Luka, how does everybody do this? And you'll see some people were pulling deadlifts off blocks, right? They were higher up, because they might not have great control from the floor. Box jumps were lower, right? Some were landing lower into that position, some were landing higher in that position. Core trainer presses, weight. So you can see here, like for instance, training means progressions, regressions. You have fundamental positions. You have position of load, which means the load could be in the back, it could be in the front, it could be a sandbag, right? The center of gravity can change. Fundamental positions can change. Right? We can have load changes, obviously, more weight, less weight. That's a simple one. We can have starting positions. So that's exactly what I just explained. Is the deadlift from the floor? Am I standing on the plate to get even more range of motion? Am I having the weight on the block so I have less range of motion? Right? That's the starting position. We can start from here, we can start from here, depending on what the person can do. We've got rest periods. Is the rest period 90 seconds or is it 45? Right? What are the changes that we want to make? Implements and tools. Hey, am I pressing with a dumbbell, a steel mace, a kettlebell, right? There's a barbell. There's a lot of different tools that we can press with. We have different tempos, so time and attention. Hey, do I want to pause in that weak position? Do I want a 4-second eccentric? Okay, we can manipulate that. Stance. Am I doing the deadlift here? Maybe I'm staggering that deadlift. Maybe I'm staggering the press. Maybe it's a 2-legged press, right? It all adjusts to the person. So we're able to use these training progressions and regressions with each person based on where they're at. You also have grip width, grip strength. So maybe grip width, like wider apart. We could go snatch deadlift. We could go closer stance. We could go semi-sumo, right? So there's so many different ways to manipulate it, but we have to fit the training session to the client versus the client to the training session, if that means, right? So it's not like, well, everybody's doing this. Oh, your shoulder's banged up, doesn't matter, right? That's why we do a thorough assessment. Actually, I'm gonna flip this real quick because this is what's very, very important. And let's look at this as a durability and capacity continuum. So the durability and capacity continuum, think of it this way. There's different levels, like what can people handle? And so in level 1, these are our fundamental positions. So prone, supine, quadruped, right? All fours, half kneeling position. So this is our half kneeling position. This is our tall kneeling position, right? Our deep squat position. Okay, so Cossack and then standing athletic stances, okay? So we're always assessing what a person can do and where they can be. From there, that fundamental position, we have fundamental movement patterns. This is actually things that we cover in our orientations also. You know, can people do it? Hinge, so just neutral spine. Can they hinge? Right? Can they deadlift? Squat, how well can they squat? We have different progressions for that. Push-ups, a lunge, 90-90 static lunge to see balance, single leg strength, mobility, inverted rows, and also we love the Turkish get-up to just see the multiplanar segmental positions that a person can control. From there, we go to the strength training that I already showed you guys, right? Which is horizontal push, pull, vertical push, pull, quad dominant, hip dominant, rotation, anti-rotation, loaded carries. And then we have some special strength, which is almost a transfer from moving to special strength. Now, this is stuff where I look at as sports and athleticism, right? Special strength is sprinting, jumping, kicking, throwing, punching, blocking. And to be honest, like this is most people, we train people to be able to do these things, right? Because you might look at this and say, well, you know, general population. Put it this way, in life, we're gonna help you get lean, we're gonna help you put on muscle, we're gonna help you move better, like not be in pain. You should, and if you do that, you should be able to do these things in life, okay? Now from there we have segmental sport-specific skill practice, which is, you know, the baseball pitch, the hockey, the hockey squat, the sprint, the drills, the basketball shot, like all the specific sports actions, right? But what you'll see a lot of times is that people will be here without working on these fundamental things. And one of the things that, like I said, there's a video you guys will see that's talking about functional range conditioning. We just had a certification here over the weekend. And this point on sapient fitness, okay? If we cannot move our joints and we can't, you know, so let's just look at the shoulder. If I cannot get my shoulder overhead with a locked out elbow in a quality position, with a neutral neck, neutral spine, core engaged, glutes engaged, with body weight, how am I going to press a barbell overhead, a kettlebell overhead, anything overhead without messing up my joint or having to lean back and now crush my low back? Not possible, okay? So we have to look at joints in isolation. We have to. If you don't, and you say, well, no, all that matters is just like drilling the squat. Well, but to be good at the squat, you have to have a healthy hip joint. You have to have a healthy knee and an good ankle dorsiflexion to get there, right? If we want to press, we have to have a quality shoulder, upward scapular rotation. We have to train joints in isolation to be healthy so that they can be integrated together in a quality way without getting beat up. And that's why today, right now, in the rise of high intensity group training without systems that based on principles that work, what's happening is that people that have the right intentions, they want to feel better, look better, perform better, and are going into high intensity environments after being at work all day, not really moving, not being active, not having healthy joints, and now putting those joints through a lot of stress because we're not training the foundations first. And so I get so ramped up about this, I get so excited about this, excited in a way of like helping people improve like joint health because it helps everything else out. Hey, you want to be out of pain? Absolutely, you got to do that. You want to get leaner? Absolutely, you want to do that because guess what? Anytime you're hurt, anytime you're in pain, you're going to hit roadblocks and you're not going to be able to lose weight. You're not going to be able to practice and train. You're going to be miserable. And guess what? When you have pain and agitation, it drives you to do what? Most of the time, whether it's eating, stressed out, right? All those things that drive, I would say, weight gain. Okay, so it's the foundation of everything. Call it sapient fitness, okay? Period. And so just know that we have to start with these fundamental positions. And that doesn't mean listen, if you come to Vigor Round, you'll see we train hard, but we train smart, right? There's a system so that you do not get crushed. We crush the muscles, but not the joints, right? We have ample recovery so that you can recover from the work so you can get the result. And so, going back to what we started with, okay? There's a system for success in most areas, in most places. And if you study it, right, and you follow it, you'll actually have to do less work, in a sense of you'll do the right work, and so you'll move along faster. Because if you do the wrong work, you can work really, really hard and go nowhere, right? It's just like if I gave you a shovel and said, hey, listen, I want you to dig a hole right there in the middle of the street. That's hard work, man. Like, you're working hard as can be. But where are you getting? Nowhere. See what I'm saying? And so, like, that's what we want. We want to make sure you follow systems, that success systems, when it comes to training, when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to recovery. And those are some of the things that I wanted to share. So you kind of see that, I would say, 10,000 foot view of actually diving a little bit deeper in what we do and how we do it. And I will see you in the next Vigor Life episode, breaking some more stuff down for you.